The gentle buzz of her phone startled Abigail Parker from her concentrated state. It was nearly midnight, and the dim light of her desk lamp cast long shadows across her modest apartment living room. Papers were scattered across the coffee table, remnants of the marketing proposal she'd been revising for the past 6 hours. As the newest junior marketing associate at Westfield Enterprises, she was determined to prove herself, especially after her awkward introduction to the company 3 months ago. She reached for her phone, rubbing her tired eyes. A message from her best friend Jessica was waiting. "Did you tell him yet? You need to speak up about the project." Abigail sighed. Jessica had been pushing her to confront Tyler, her immediate supervisor, about taking credit for her work on the Bronson account. It wasn't the first time he'd done this, but Abigail was hesitant to rock the boat. This job at one of Boston's most prestigious marketing firms was her big break after years of struggle. "Not yet," she typed back, "but I've compiled evidence. Look at what he changed in my original proposal." She scrolled through her photos, selecting screenshots of her work alongside Tyler's minimally altered versions. As she pressed send, a strange feeling washed over her. The message showed as delivered, but something felt off. She checked the recipient and her heart stopped. Instead of sending the evidence to Jessica Davis, she had accidentally sent it to Jackson Westfield, the enigmatic, rarely seen CEO of Westfield Enterprises. "No, no, no," Abigail gasped, frantically tapping her screen to unsend the message. But it was too late. 2 grey check marks confirmed her worst nightmare. Not only had she sent evidence of internal conflict to the CEO, but she'd done it at midnight on a Friday. "This isn't happening," she whispered, pacing her small apartment. Jackson Westfield was practically a ghost in the company, known for his ruthless business tactics and the mysterious aura that surrounded him. At 35, he had transformed his father's struggling advertising agency into a marketing powerhouse through methods that industry insiders described as both brilliant and merciless. Her phone buzzed again. With shaking hands, she looked at the screen. Jackson Westfield. "Miss Parker, we need to discuss this. Don't contact anyone else about this matter." The blood drained from her face. Not only had he seen her message, but he knew exactly who she was among hundreds of employees. Was she about to be fired? Or worse, blacklisted from every marketing firm in Boston? She was still staring at the message, paralyzed with indecision, when the distinctive sound of car tires on wet pavement drew her attention to the window. Looking down at the street from her third-floor apartment, Abigail's breath caught in her throat. 3 black SUVs with tinted windows had pulled up outside her building. Even in the dim glow of the street lamps, the vehicles exuded an unmistakable air of luxury and intimidation. "This can't be happening," she whispered, watching as the door to the lead vehicle opened. A tall man in a dark suit stepped out, his face obscured as he looked up toward her building. He spoke briefly into what appeared to be a communication device on his wrist. Her phone buzzed again. "Jackson Westfield. I'm downstairs. Please come down. This is not optional." Abigail's mind raced through her options. Ignore him. Impossible. He was her boss and apparently knew exactly where she lived. Pretend she was asleep? The message already showed as read. Run. To where? And what about her career? With trembling fingers she responded, "I'll be right down." She quickly changed from her comfortable pajama pants into jeans, pulled a sweater over her tank top, and attempted to tame her auburn hair that had been tied in a messy bun for hours. A quick glance in the mirror confirmed her fears. She looked exactly like someone who had been working until midnight and was now terrified. The elevator ride to the ground floor felt eternal. Each floor that passed brought her closer to what might be the end of her career, or worse. What if this wasn't just about Tyler taking credit? What if she had accidentally exposed something bigger? Rumors about Westfield's aggressive business tactics had always circulated in the office. When the elevator doors opened to the lobby, Abigail forced herself to walk with as much dignity as she could muster. Through the glass doors, she could see the man in the suit waiting, his posture rigid and professional. As she pushed through the doors into the cool night air, the man nodded curtly. "Miss Parker, Mr. Westfield is waiting." He gestured toward the middle SUV, where the rear door stood open. With each step toward the vehicle, Abigail felt a growing sense of unreality. She had never even seen Jackson Westfield in person. He communicated through deputies and rarely visited the main office. Yet here she was, about to meet him at midnight because of a misdirected text. As she approached the open door, she could make out a silhouette in the dim interior light. Taking a deep breath, she slid into the plush leather seat. "Ms. Parker," said a deep voice that carried both authority and a hint of something she couldn't quite identify. "I believe we have some important matters to discuss." Sitting across from her was Jackson Westfield himself, impeccably dressed in what appeared to be a custom suit despite the late hour. His features were sharp, from his defined jawline to his penetrating grey eyes that seemed to assess her in one comprehensive glance. He didn't look angry, which somehow made the situation more unnerving. "Mr. Westfield," she managed, her voice steadier than she expected. "I apologize for the message. It was meant for—" "I know exactly what it was," he interrupted, his tone neutral. "What interests me more is its content." He held up his phone, displaying her accidental text. "Is there truth to these allegations against Tyler Bennett?" The question hung in the air between them as the door closed with a soft thud, sealing her fate. "Yes," Abigail answered, summoning courage she didn't know she possessed. "Every word is true. I can show you the original documents with timestamps." Something flickered in Jackson Westfield's eyes. Approval, perhaps. He nodded once, then pressed a button on the console beside him. The partition separating them from the driver silently rose. "Show me everything," he said, his voice controlled but intense. "From the beginning." For the next 30 minutes, as the SUV glided through Boston's empty streets, Abigail walked through the evidence she'd compiled. She showed him the original marketing proposals she'd created for the Bronson account, followed by Tyler's barely modified versions, submitted under his name. She explained how her ideas had generated a 30% increase in engagement for the client, yet Tyler had taken full credit during the presentation to senior management. Jackson remained silent throughout her explanation, his expression unreadable as he examined each piece of evidence on her phone. The only indication of his thoughts was an occasional tightening around his eyes or the slight furrow of his brow. "And this isn't the first time," Abigail continued, finding her voice growing stronger. "The Harrison campaign last month, the social media strategy for Blue Crest Technologies, all my work that Tyler claimed as his own." "Why didn't you report this?" Jackson finally asked, looking up from the evidence. His question wasn't accusatory. If anything, it carried a note of genuine curiosity. Abigail laughed nervously. "To whom?" "Tyler is the head of our department. His supervisor is Diana Wells, who's been his friend since college. I'm 3 months into my first real job after 5 years of freelancing. Who would believe me?" Jackson nodded slowly, seemingly processing this information. "And yet you documented everything meticulously," he observed. "Why bother if you weren't planning to report it?" The question caught Abigail off guard. She hadn't really examined her own motivations for keeping such detailed records. "I guess I needed to know I wasn't crazy," she admitted. "That I wasn't imagining things or overreacting. And maybe part of me hoped that someday there might be an opportunity to set things right." "Well," Jackson said, a hint of a smile playing at the corners of his mouth, "it seems that opportunity has arrived, albeit in a rather unconventional manner." The SUV slowed to a stop, and Abigail realized they had arrived at the Westfield Enterprises headquarters, a gleaming 40-story tower in downtown Boston. At this hour, most of the building was dark, save for the security lights and a few scattered offices where ambitious employees or cleaning staff might still be working. "Why are we here?" Abigail asked, suddenly aware of how strange this situation was. "I need access to our servers to verify certain aspects of your claim," Jackson explained, opening his door. "And I prefer to handle sensitive matters personally." The lobby was eerily quiet as they entered, their footsteps echoing on the marble floor. The security guard at the desk straightened immediately upon seeing Jackson, offering a respectful, "Good evening, Mr. Westfield," as they passed. In the elevator, Jackson inserted a key into a special slot and pressed the button for the 40th floor, the executive level that Abigail had never visited. As they ascended, an uncomfortable silence fell between them. "I'm curious," Jackson said suddenly, breaking the tension. "What made you apply to Westfield Enterprises specifically?" The question seemed so ordinary, so out of place in the surreal situation, that Abigail almost laughed. "Honestly, your company's work on the Helping Hands Foundation campaign. It was brilliant marketing that actually made a difference. After years of creating ads for products nobody needs, I wanted to be part of something meaningful." Jackson studied her with renewed interest. "I designed that campaign myself," he said quietly. "It was personal." Before Abigail could respond, the elevator doors opened to reveal the executive floor. Unlike the open-plan office where she worked, this level featured elegant private offices, with glass walls offering panoramic views of the Boston skyline. Jackson led her to what was obviously his personal office, a spacious corner room with floor-to-ceiling windows and minimalist decor. "Please sit," he said, gesturing to a sleek leather chair as he moved behind his desk. As Jackson typed rapidly on his computer, occasionally pausing to examine something on the screen, Abigail took the opportunity to study him more closely. The rumors about him had painted a picture of a cold, calculating businessman who cared only for profit margins and market share. The man before her was certainly intense and intimidating, but there was something else there, an underlying passion and focus that hinted at deeper complexities. "Ms. Parker," he said suddenly, looking up from his computer, "are you aware that the Bronson account is worth approximately $12 million annually to Westfield Enterprises?" Abigail swallowed hard. "I knew it was significant, but not the exact figure. And are you aware that Tyler Bennett has been claiming credit for other employees' work since he joined the company 5 years ago?" This revelation stunned her. "No. I thought I was the only one." Jackson's expression darkened. "You're the seventh, but you're the first to document it so thoroughly." He turned his monitor so she could see the screen. "I've accessed the company server logs. They confirm exactly what you've shown me. The original documents were created by you, then accessed by Tyler shortly before his versions appeared." A surge of vindication washed over Abigail, quickly followed by confusion. "If you knew about his pattern of behavior, why is he still employed?" Jackson finished her question, his voice hardening. "I didn't know. Not until 3 weeks ago, when Internal Affairs flagged some irregularities in the creative department. We've been building a case quietly but lacked decisive evidence." He gestured to her phone. "Until now." Abigail processed this information, trying to make sense of the night's events. "So, what happens now?" Jackson leaned back in his chair, studying her with an intensity that made her acutely aware of the late hour, her casual attire, and the strange circumstances that had brought her to this moment. "That depends," he said finally. "How would you feel about a promotion?" Abigail blinked in surprise. "A promotion? I've only been with the company for 3 months. 3 months in which you've demonstrated exceptional creative talent, meticulous attention to detail, and remarkable integrity under difficult circumstances." He paused. "The Helping Hands Foundation has requested a follow-up campaign. Based on what I've seen tonight, I believe you're the right person to lead it." The offer was so unexpected that Abigail found herself momentarily speechless. This morning, she had been a junior associate being exploited by her supervisor. Now the CEO was offering her a chance to lead a major campaign. "Why me?" she finally managed to ask. "There must be dozens of more experienced people in the company." Something shifted in Jackson's expression, a softening around the eyes perhaps. "Experience isn't everything, Ms. Parker. Sometimes fresh perspective is more valuable. Besides," he added, a hint of a smile playing at his lips, "anyone who documents corporate malfeasance with the thoroughness of a federal prosecutor clearly has the attention to detail we need." As the implications of his offer sank in, a new question formed in Abigail's mind, one that had been nagging at her since those black SUVs had appeared outside her apartment. "Mr. Westfield," she began carefully, "I appreciate the opportunity, truly, but I have to ask, why did you come to my apartment in the middle of the night? Why not just address this on Monday morning?" The question hung in the air between them, and for the first time, Jackson Westfield looked slightly uncomfortable. "A fair question," Jackson acknowledged, his fingers interlaced on the desk before him. "The truth is, Ms. Parker, Westfield Enterprises is facing a critical situation that couldn't wait until Monday." He stood and walked to the window, gazing out at the glittering Boston skyline. "The Bronson account isn't just any client. They're finalizing a decision this weekend on whether to renew their contract with us or move to our main competitor, Archer Media Group." He turned to face her. "Your work, the work Tyler claimed as his own, is the centerpiece of our renewal pitch." Abigail absorbed this information. "And my text revealed that the person presenting the pitch wasn't the person who created it." "Precisely," Jackson said. Bronson's CEO, Robert Kensington, is joining me for breakfast tomorrow to discuss the renewal. I needed to understand exactly what happened before that meeting. He paused, but there's more to it than that. He returned to his desk and opened a drawer, removing a folder marked Confidential. As he spread several documents on the desk, Abigail noticed they were financial reports. For the past 6 months, someone has been leaking our proprietary strategies to Archer Media, he explained, his voice tight with controlled anger. We've lost 3 major clients as a result. The evidence pointed to someone in the creative department, but we couldn't identify the source. Abigail felt a chill run down her spine. You think it's Tyler? I wasn't sure until tonight, Jackson admitted. But your evidence completes the puzzle. Tyler has been stealing creative work from talented employees like yourself, presenting it as his own to advance his career, while simultaneously selling our strategies to Archer. He indicated one of the documents. These are transfers to an offshore account traced back to him. The revelation left Abigail stunned. What she had thought was merely a case of workplace credit stealing was actually industrial espionage. That's why I came to your apartment with security, Jackson continued. If Tyler discovered you had evidence against him and that you'd accidentally sent it to me, he didn't finish the sentence, but the implication was clear. You were protecting me, Abigail realized, seeing Jackson Westfield in an entirely new light. Protecting you and the company, he corrected, though the distinction seemed less defined than his words suggested. Which brings me to my next question. Would you be willing to help us expose him completely? How? Abigail asked, leaning forward. Tyler doesn't know about your text to me, Jackson explained. Tomorrow morning I'm calling an emergency creative department meeting. I want you to present your original work on the Bronson account, work that Tyler believes only he has seen in its original form. Abigail's heart raced at the thought. You want to trap him. I want to give him the opportunity to reveal his true character, Jackson corrected. If he tries to claim your work again, in front of witnesses including myself and Robert Kensington, he'll implicate himself, Abigail finished, understanding the strategy. Jackson nodded, watching her carefully. It's asking a lot, I know, putting yourself in a potentially confrontational situation. Abigail took a deep breath, considering the implications. When is this meeting? 9 a.m., Jackson replied. I'll send a car for you at 8. The reality of what she was agreeing to settled over her. He won't go down without a fight, she said quietly. No, Jackson agreed, his expression hardening. Which is why you won't be alone. I'll be there along with our legal team and security. A thought occurred to Abigail. The other 6 people whose work he stole, will they be there too? Something like approval flashed in Jackson's eyes. They can be. That's actually an excellent suggestion. For the next hour, they developed the strategy for the morning meeting. Jackson ordered in coffee and sandwiches from an all-night deli, and Abigail found herself relaxing slightly as they worked. Behind his intimidating exterior, Jackson Westfield was brilliantly strategic and, surprisingly, willing to listen to her ideas. As they finalized the details, Jackson's phone buzzed with a message. He checked it, his expression turning grim. What is it? Abigail asked. Security at your building reports someone attempting to access your apartment, he said, immediately rising and reaching for his coat. A man matching Tyler's description. Fear gripped Abigail. How would he know about the text? I didn't tell anyone except you. The message may have been visible on a shared cloud account or work server he monitors, Jackson theorized, already striding toward the door. We need to move quickly. Within minutes, they were in the SUV heading back to Abigail's apartment. Jackson spoke rapidly into his phone, issuing instructions to his security team already at the scene. They've detained him, he reported after hanging up. He was carrying these. He showed her a photo his security team had just sent, a small USB drive and what appeared to be a covert listening device. He was going to plant bugs in my apartment, Abigail gasped, the reality of the situation hitting her with full force. And likely download anything from your computer that might incriminate him, Jackson confirmed. Ms. Parker, Abigail, I'm afraid your apartment isn't safe tonight. Tyler may have accomplices we don't know about. The use of her first name wasn't lost on Abigail, nor was the genuine concern in his voice. Where am I supposed to go? Jackson hesitated, seeming to debate with himself before answering. I have a guest house at my property in Beacon Hill. It's secure, private, and has everything you might need for the night. Seeing her expression, he quickly added, or I can arrange a hotel room with security if you'd prefer." The events of the night had left Abigail exhausted and shaken. The thought of a hotel room, however luxurious, felt impersonal and lonely. Something about Jackson's direct involvement in her safety made the guest house option feel more secure. The guest house would be fine, she decided. "Thank you." Jackson nodded, making a quick call to prepare for her arrival. As they changed direction toward Beacon Hill, Abigail found herself studying Jackson's profile in the dim light of the car. The rumors about him had painted such a different picture than the man she was coming to know. A man who had personally rushed to protect an employee he'd never met, who worked past midnight to ensure justice was served, who offered opportunities based on merit rather than seniority. "You're nothing like what people say about you," she observed quietly. Jackson glanced at her, a hint of amusement in his eyes. "And what do people say about me, Miss Parker?" "That you're cold, calculating, that you care only about profit margins and acquisitions." "And now?" he asked, his voice softer than she'd heard it before. "Now I think there's much more to Jackson Westfield than meets the eye." Something changed in the atmosphere between them, a shift so subtle yet undeniable that Abigail found herself holding her breath. Jackson held her gaze for a moment that seemed to stretch into infinity before looking away. "We all have our public personas," he said finally. "Sometimes they serve a purpose." The SUV turned onto a tree-lined street of elegant historic homes, stopping before a stately brick mansion with tasteful landscaping illuminated by subtle ground lighting. Two security personnel stood discreetly near the entrance. "Here we are," Jackson said as the driver opened the door. "I'll show you to the guest house." Abigail stepped out into the cool night air, taking in the impressive property. "This is your home." "One of them," Jackson admitted, leading her along a stone path that wound through carefully maintained gardens. "I spend most of my time here when I'm in Boston." The guest house, which came into view around a curve in the path, was a charming two-story structure that perfectly complemented the main house while maintaining its own distinct character. Inside, Abigail found a beautifully appointed living space with a kitchenette, living room, and spiral staircase, leading to what she presumed was a bedroom above. "There should be everything you need," Jackson said, remaining near the door. "Toiletries, robes, even some clothes that might fit you. My sister stays here occasionally." "Thank you," Abigail said, genuinely moved by the consideration. "For everything," Jackson nodded, his expression unreadable in the soft lighting. "Try to get some rest. Tomorrow will be eventful." He turned to leave, then paused. "Abigail?" "Yes, I'm glad you sent that text to the wrong person." With that enigmatic statement, he was gone, leaving Abigail alone with her thoughts and the unmistakable sense that her life had just changed irrevocably. Morning light filtered through gauzy curtains, rousing Abigail from a surprisingly deep sleep. For a moment, disorientation clouded her mind as she took in the unfamiliar surroundings, the luxurious bedding, the tasteful artwork, the panoramic view of Boston through wide windows. Then the events of the previous night came rushing back. The misdirected text, the black SUVs, Tyler's betrayal, and Jackson Westfield's unexpected intervention. She checked her phone. 6:45 a.m. Just over 2 hours until the car would arrive to take her to what promised to be the most consequential meeting of her career. Her stomach tightened with a mixture of anxiety and determination. A soft knock at the door downstairs pulled her from her thoughts. Wrapping herself in the plush robe she'd found the night before, Abigail descended the spiral staircase and cautiously approached the door. "Yes," she called. "Miss Parker, it's Maria. Mr. Westfield asked me to bring you breakfast and some clothes for today's meeting." Abigail opened the door to find a middle-aged woman with a kind smile holding a garment bag and a covered breakfast tray. The delicious aroma of fresh coffee and pastries wafted through the air. "Thank you," Abigail said, accepting the items. "Please thank Mr. Westfield for me." "He's actually in the garden taking his morning coffee," Maria replied. "He mentioned you're welcome to join him if you'd like. No pressure, of course." After Maria left, Abigail examined the contents of the garment bag. A beautifully tailored navy blue suit with a silk blouse, along with accessories and shoes that were remarkably close to her size. A note in strong, decisive handwriting was pinned to the jacket. "For battle, J.W." The thoughtfulness of the gesture, practical yet personal, warmed her unexpectedly. After a quick shower and breakfast, Abigail dressed in the provided outfit, which fit as though it had been made for her. Gathering her courage, she decided to take Jackson up on his invitation before they headed into the office. She found him seated at a wrought-iron table beneath a flowering trellis, reading something on a tablet while absent-mindedly stirring his coffee. He looked up as she approached, and something flickered in his eyes. Appreciation, perhaps, or approval. "The suit fits," he observed, rising politely as she approached. "Perfectly," Abigail confirmed. "Your sister and I must be similar in size." A hint of amusement crossed his features. "I don't have a sister, Miss Parker." "Oh." Abigail blinked in surprise. "Then how—" "I had my assistant contact the boutique where we order corporate gifts. They sent over several options early this morning based on the general description I provided." He gestured for her to sit. "Coffee?" As he poured her a cup from the silver carafe, Abigail took the opportunity to study him in the morning light. Gone was the intensity of the previous night, replaced by a quiet confidence that was somehow even more compelling. "Are you ready for today?" he asked, sliding the cup toward her. "As ready as I'll ever be," she replied honestly. "Have there been any developments with Tyler?" "He spent the night in a holding cell on breaking and entering charges," Jackson informed her. "His lawyer arranged bail this morning. He'll be at the meeting. My security team made sure of it." "He must know something's wrong," Abigail reasoned. "Won't he be suspicious?" "Undoubtedly," Jackson agreed, "but his options are limited. Not showing up would be an admission of guilt. His best play is to attend and try to control the narrative." They spent the next half hour refining their strategy, with Jackson sharing the latest updates from his legal team. As they talked, Abigail noticed a subtle shift in their dynamic, a growing ease, a natural rhythm to their conversation that belied their brief acquaintance. "There's something I've been wondering," she said as they finished their coffee. "How did you know exactly who I was when I sent that text? Westfield has hundreds of employees." Jackson's lips curved into a slight smile. "Your marketing proposal for the Children's Hospital campaign last month. It crossed my desk for final approval. Your approach was memorable." "You read junior associates' proposals personally?" Abigail asked, surprised. "Only the exceptional ones," he replied, his gaze holding hers for a moment longer than necessary before he checked his watch. "We should head to the office. Separate cars would be prudent. Appearances matter today." An hour later, Abigail found herself in a conference room at Westfield Enterprises, her heart pounding as executives and creative team members filed in. Jackson had arranged for her to arrive early and wait in an adjacent office, allowing her to observe through one-way glass as the room filled. Tyler Bennett arrived last, his usual confident demeanor slightly strained. Dark circles beneath his eyes suggested a sleepless night, and he kept checking his phone anxiously. He took his customary seat at the head of the creative team's section, nodding to colleagues as though nothing were amiss. At precisely 9 a.m., Jackson Westfield entered, accompanied by an older distinguished gentleman Abigail recognized from photos as Robert Kensington, CEO of Bronson Enterprises. The room immediately fell silent. "Thank you all for coming on such short notice," Jackson began, his authoritative tone capturing everyone's attention. "Before we discuss the Bronson account renewal, I'd like to address a serious issue that has come to light." He nodded toward the door where a security officer stood. "Please show in our special guest." This was Abigail's cue. Taking a deep breath, she entered the conference room with her head held high, clutching a portfolio containing her original work. The surprised murmurs and Tyler's suddenly pale face confirmed that her presence was entirely unexpected. "For those who haven't had the pleasure, this is Abigail Parker, one of our junior marketing associates," Jackson introduced her. "Miss Parker, please take a seat at the front." As Abigail moved to the indicated chair, she caught Tyler's eye. The look he gave her contained equal parts confusion and barely concealed panic. "Ms. Parker," Jackson continued, "would you please share with the group your original marketing proposal for the Bronson account?" For the next 15 minutes, Abigail presented her work with growing confidence, explaining the research and creative process behind each element. As she spoke, she could see recognition dawning on the faces of her colleagues. These were the exact strategies Tyler had presented as his own, just days earlier. When she finished, Jackson thanked her calmly, then turned to Tyler. "Mr. Bennett, would you care to explain the remarkable similarity between Ms. Parker's work and what you presented to this group on Tuesday?" Tyler's forced laugh echoed hollowly in the silent room. There must be some mistake. I mentored Abigail on this project. Any similarities reflect my guidance. Interesting, Jackson replied, his tone deceptively casual. Because we have server timestamps showing Ms. Parker's files were created weeks before you accessed them. He nodded to his assistant, who distributed copies of the server logs. And similar patterns appear with work from 6 other employees over the past 5 years. At this point, the door opened again, and 6 Westfield employees of varying seniority entered, each carrying their own evidence portfolios. The color drained completely from Tyler's face as he recognized them. "This is absurd," he stammered, rising from his chair. "I've been nothing but loyal to Westfield. This is clearly a coordinated attack on my reputation." "And what about your loyalty to Archer Media Group?" Jackson asked quietly, placing a folder on the table. "We have records of payments from their offshore accounts to yours coinciding with each client we've lost to them in the past 6 months." The room erupted in shocked whispers. Corporate espionage was far more serious than plagiarizing a colleague's work. Tyler looked frantically around the room, seeking any sympathetic face. Finding none, his expression hardened into something ugly. "You can't prove anything," he hissed, reaching for his phone. "Actually," Robert Kensington spoke for the first time, "we can." He placed his own phone on the table. "I've been recording our conversations, Tyler, including the one last week where you offered to sell Westfield's complete client strategy to me if I moved the Bronson account to Archer, where you claimed you'd been offered a director position." Tyler lunged for the door, only to find his path blocked by security. As they escorted him from the room, the shocked silence gave way to an eruption of questions and exclamations. Jackson raised his hand for quiet. "This has been a difficult morning for all of us. We'll have a company-wide meeting this afternoon to address any concerns. For now, I ask for your discretion as our legal team handles this matter." He turned to Abigail. "Ms. Parker, Mr. Kensington and I would like to speak with you privately, please." In Jackson's office, Robert Kensington studied Abigail with new respect. "So you're the actual creative mind behind the campaign that impressed me so much?" "Yes, sir," Abigail confirmed. "Well, young lady, based on what I've seen today, both your work and your character, I'm pleased to confirm that Bronson Enterprises will be renewing our contract with Westfield." He shook her hand firmly. "I look forward to working directly with you on future projects." After Kensington departed, Abigail found herself alone with Jackson again. The events of the morning had left her emotionally drained, yet strangely exhilarated. "You did brilliantly," Jackson said, his usual reserve softened by genuine admiration. Not many people could have handled that situation with such poise. "What happens now?" Abigail asked. "Professionally? You'll take over as creative lead on the Bronson account, with a title and salary to match." He paused, something shifting in his expression. "Personally? That depends." "On what?" Jackson moved closer, his voice quieter. "On whether you'd consider having dinner with me tonight. Not as your boss, but as a man who finds himself increasingly captivated by a woman of exceptional talent and courage." The unexpected invitation sent a flutter through Abigail's chest. 24 hours ago, Jackson Westfield had been an enigmatic figure she'd never even met. Now, after one extraordinary night and morning, she found herself drawn to the complex man behind the powerful CEO facade. "I'd like that," she replied, a smile breaking through her professional composure. 6 months later, as Abigail accepted an industry award for the campaign that had launched her meteoric rise at Westfield Enterprises, she caught Jackson's eye in the audience. His proud smile reflected the journey they'd begun that night, when a misdirected text had changed both their lives, leading to a partnership that transcended the professional world and blossomed into something neither had expected to find.